Ethan Cole stood in the corner of the grand hall like a statue. His job was simple. Stand still. Look dangerous. Do nothing unless ordered. The Sylvari did not think much of humans. They called them young. They called them primitive. They hired them as guards because it was fashionable, like wearing rare jewels or keeping strange animals. Ethan knew this. He did not care. The pay was good, and the work was easy. The Imperial starship Vanthral was the most beautiful thing Ethan had ever seen. It was made of white metal and living crystal. Light moved through its walls like water. The Sylvari who lived on it were tall and thin, with silver skin and eyes like polished mirrors. They moved like dancers and spoke like poets. They had ruled their corner of the galaxy for 10,000 years. Ethan was just a human, mercenary from Earth. He was 32 years old. He had scars on his face and hands. He was not beautiful. He was not elegant. To the Sylvari, he was barely visible. Princess Valith Sauron walked past him every day. She was the third daughter of the Empress. Her hair was like white silk. Her gown floated behind her like a cloud. She never looked at Ethan. She never looked at any of the human guards. They were furniture to her, objects that happened to breathe. Ethan did not mind. He had served worse masters in worse places. The diplomatic summit was held on a neutral station called Concordance Prime. It was a place where different species came to talk and make deals. The Sylvari were meeting with 3 other empires to discuss trade and borders. It was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be safe. The Great Hall was filled with representatives from across the galaxy. There were the Morthani, large and heavy, with skin like stone. There were the Quell, small and quick, with too many eyes. And there were the Vrethic, standing in the shadows at the edge of the room. Ethan did not like the Vrethic. They were insect-like creatures with hard shells and sharp limbs. They had fought the Sylvari for thousands of years. They hated each other with a hatred that burned across generations. But today they were here to talk peace. Princess Valith stood at the center of the Sylvari group. She was speaking with a Morthani elder about crystal exports. Her voice was calm and musical. She did not notice the shadows moving at the edge of the room. Ethan noticed. He saw the Vrethic delegates shift position. He saw their limbs move in a pattern that was not natural. He saw the flash of metal beneath their robes. His body moved before his mind could think. The first plasma bolt hit the floor where the princess had been standing. The second hit the wall behind her. The third hit Ethan in the back as he threw himself over her body. The pain was like nothing he had ever felt. It was fire and lightning and breaking glass all at once. His armor melted into his skin. His flesh burned away. But he did not let go. He covered the princess with his body and raised his sidearm with one shaking hand. He fired. Once, twice, 3 times. A Vrethic assassin fell. Then another. The Sylvari guards finally moved. They raised their shields and formed a wall around their people. But they did not attack. Their training told them to defend and retreat, to preserve and protect, not to fight. Ethan kept firing. His vision was going dark. His arm felt like it was made of lead. But he kept firing until the last assassin fell and the room went quiet. Someone was screaming. Maybe it was him. He could not tell anymore. Hands pulled him off the princess. He saw her face above him. Her silver eyes were wide. There was blood on her white gown. His blood. The human, someone said. The human saved her. Ethan wanted to laugh. He wanted to say something clever, but his mouth would not work. His heart would not beat. The darkness swallowed him whole. He died on the shuttle back to the Vanthral. His heart stopped. His brain went silent. For 4 minutes, Ethan Cole was nothing but a cooling body on a medical table. The Sylvari doctors looked at each other. In their culture, death was the end. When the body stopped, you let it go. You did not fight the universe. You accepted its judgment with grace. The human doctor did not accept anything. Her name was Sarah Chun. She was part of the small medical team assigned to the human guards. She pushed the Sylvari aside and started working on Ethan with hands that moved like machines. She shocked his heart. She pumped chemicals into his blood. She cut open his chest and held his heart in her hands, squeezing it, forcing it to beat. "This is madness," a Sylvari doctor whispered. "He is dead. Let him go." "He is not dead until I say he is dead," Sarah replied. The Sylvari watched in horror. To them, this was violence against nature. It was primitive. It was barbaric. It was wrong, but it worked. Ethan's heart started beating. His lungs started breathing. His eyes opened, filled with pain and confusion and a stubborn refusal to stop existing. He was alive. Against all reason, against all logic, against the will of the universe itself, Ethan Cole was alive. The report reached Empress Sirith within the hour. She was 300 years old. She had seen empires rise and fall. She had ordered the deaths of millions and the salvation of billions. Nothing surprised her anymore, but this surprised her. A human guard, hired as decoration, had thrown himself in front of plasma fire to save her daughter. He had died for her, and then he had refused to stay dead. The Empress read the report 3 times. She watched the security footage 5 times. She saw the moment Ethan moved, faster than thought, driven by something the Sylvari had forgotten long ago. Instinct. Pure, animal instinct to protect. The Sylvari did not act without calculation. Every move was planned. Every sacrifice was measured. They did not throw their lives away for others without orders that this human had. Without thinking, without hesitation, without hope of reward, the Empress set down the report and looked out at the stars beyond her window. Her silver eyes reflected the distant light of 1,000 suns. "Interesting," she said softly. "Most interesting." She called for her advisors. She wanted to know everything about this human. His history, his family, his thoughts and dreams and fears. She wanted to understand what made him jump in front of death for a princess who had never even learned his name. For the first time in 300 years, Empress Sirith was curious, and when the Empress was curious, the whole empire paid attention. Ethan woke up in a room made of light. The walls were white crystal. The ceiling glowed with soft warmth. The bed beneath him was softer than anything he had ever touched. For a moment, he thought he was dead and this was some kind of afterlife. Then the pain hit him, and he knew he was alive. Dead people did not hurt this much. He tried to sit up. His body refused. Every muscle screamed at him. His skin felt like it had been peeled off and put back wrong. He groaned and fell back against the pillows. "You should not move." The voice was soft and musical. Ethan turned his head and saw Princess Valith sitting in a chair beside his bed. She was watching him with those silver mirror eyes. Her face showed no emotion. "Where am I?" Ethan asked. His voice was rough and broken. "The Royal Medical Suite," Valith said. "The finest healing chambers on the ship. My mother ordered you brought here." "Your mother?" "Yes, yes, yes." Ethan closed his eyes. This was wrong. Guards like him did not get treated in royal medical suites. Guards like him got patched up in small rooms and sent back to work, or buried in space if the patching did not work. "You were dead for 4 minutes, Valith said. Your heart stopped. Your brain stopped. The doctor said you were gone. Doctors are wrong sometimes. Our doctors are never wrong." Valith leaned forward slightly. "Your doctor brought you back. She cut open your chest and squeezed your heart with her hands until it started beating again. Ethan remembered nothing of this. He was grateful for that. Why did you do it? Valeth asked. Do what? Jump in front of me? Take the plasma fire. You were not ordered to protect me specifically. You were decorative security. Your job was to stand and look dangerous. Nothing more. Ethan thought about the question. He did not have a good answer. He did not have any answer that would make sense to her. You were in danger, he said finally. I could help. So I helped. That is not a reason. It is the only reason I have. Valeth stared at him for a long moment. Her face was like a mask. Ethan could not read anything in it. Then she stood up and walked to the door. My mother wishes to see you when you can walk. Do not make her wait too long. She is not patient. She left without another word. Ethan lay in the glowing room and wondered what he had gotten himself into. It took 3 days before he could walk. The human doctor, Sarah Chan, visited him every few hours. She checked his wounds and adjusted his medications. She told him he was lucky to be alive. You should be dead 10 times over, she said. The plasma burned through your armor, your skin, your muscle. It touched your spine. Another centimeter and you would have been paralyzed. Another 2 centimeters and you would have been vaporized. Good thing it was only 1 centimeter then. Sarah did not laugh. The Sylvari doctors wanted to let you die. They said it was the natural order. They said you had served your purpose and should be allowed to rest. What did you say? I told them to get out of my medical bay. Ethan smiled. It hurt his face, but he smiled anyway. Thank you. Do not thank me yet. You are about to meet the Empress. That might be worse than dying. The throne room of the Vanthrol was the largest space Ethan had ever seen. It stretched for hundreds of meters in every direction. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into soft clouds of light. The floor was made of crystal that showed stars beneath it, as if they were walking on the sky itself. At the far end of the room sat a throne grown from the heart of a dead star. It pulsed with dark light, beautiful and terrible. And on that throne sat Empress Sirith, the undying. She was ancient. Ethan knew this, even though she looked young. Her face was smooth and perfect. Her hair was silver white and fell to the floor like a waterfall. Her eyes were mirrors that reflected everything and revealed nothing. She had ruled the Sylvari Empire for 300 years. Before that, she had been a general. Before that, a scientist. Before that, a poet. She had lived more lives than most species would ever know. Ethan walked toward her across that endless floor. His legs were weak. His back burned with every step. But he walked. He would not crawl before anyone. The court watched him in silence. Hundreds of Sylvari nobles, standing in perfect rows, their silver eyes following his every move. He was an insect to them, a curiosity, a primitive creature that had somehow stumbled into their perfect world. He stopped 10 meters from the throne. That was the proper distance for someone of his rank. He started to kneel. Do not kneel, the Empress said. Her voice was soft but filled the entire room. I wish to look at your face. Ethan straightened up. He met her eyes. Around him, the court gasped. No one looked directly at the Empress without permission. It was a crime. It was an insult. The Empress smiled. It was a small smile, cold and sharp, like a knife made of ice. Why? She asked. Ethan knew what she meant. The same question her daughter had asked. The question everyone was asking. She was in danger, he said. I can help. That is all. That is not all. My guards could have helped. They did not. They followed their training. They formed defensive lines. They waited for orders. You did not wait. You acted. Yes. Why? Ethan thought about Earth. He thought about his family, long dead now. He thought about the wars he had fought and the people he had lost, and the simple truth that had carried him through everything. Because waiting means dying, he said. Where I come from, if you wait for someone to tell you what to do, you die. If you think too long, you die. If you calculate the odds and find them unfavorable, you die anyway, but slower. So we do not wait. We do not calculate. We act. And sometimes we live. The Empress studied him. Her mirror eyes seemed to look through his skin, past his bones, into something deeper. Your species is young, she said. You have been among the stars for less than 200 years. We have ruled for 10,000. We have forgotten more than you have ever learned. And yet, she paused. And yet you have something we have lost. What is that? The willingness to burn. The Empress stood. She was tall, taller than any human, and she seemed to grow as she rose. You threw yourself into fire without knowing if you would survive. Without caring. You acted on instinct, on impulse, on something older than thought. We do not do this anymore. We are too old, too careful, too afraid of loss. She walked down the steps from her throne. The court held its breath. The Empress never left her throne during an audience. Never. She stopped in front of Ethan, close enough to touch. Her presence was like standing next to a star, warm and overwhelming. You will stay, she said. Not as a guard, not as a servant, as something new. I do not know what yet, but you will stay, and I will learn what makes your kind willing to die for strangers. It was not a request. It was not an offer. It was a command wrapped in silk. Ethan understood that he had no choice. He also understood something else. He was no longer invisible. For better or worse, the most powerful being in this corner of the galaxy was looking directly at him. As you wish, Empress, he said. She smiled again. This time, it almost looked warm. You may call me Sirith, she said. When we are alone, I think we will be talking often. She returned to her throne, and Ethan was led away by silent servants. Behind him, the court erupted in whispers. A human, given permission to use the Empress's name. A human, kept not as a pet but as something undefined and unprecedented. The galaxy had just shifted slightly on its axis. And Ethan Cole, former mercenary, former dead man, was at the center of the shift. The title they gave Ethan was Sworn Shield to the Crown, and had not been used for 4,000 years. The last person to hold it was a Silvari general who had saved an emperor from a collapsing star. He had been rewarded with honor, land, and a place in history. Ethan was rewarded with a golden cage. His new quarters were in the imperial wing of the Vine Throne. The rooms were larger than any home he had ever lived in on Earth. The walls were made of living crystal that changed color with his mood. The bed could have held 10 people. The bathroom had a pool instead of a shower. He was also watched every moment of every day. Servants followed him when he walked. Guards stood outside his door at all hours. Recording devices floated in the corners of every room like tiny metal flies. The Empress wanted to study him, so everything he did was recorded, analyzed, and reported. He was not a prisoner. He could go anywhere on the ship. He could eat anything he wanted. He could speak to anyone who would speak to him. But he could not leave. When he asked about returning to human space, the servant smiled and said that the Empress had not given permission. He understood. He was a specimen in a jar, a strange animal being observed by scientists who had never seen anything like him. Princess Valith was his primary observer. The Empress had ordered her to spend time with Ethan, to ask him questions, to learn about humans. At first, Valith treated it like a duty. She came to his rooms at scheduled times, asked questions from a list, and left as soon as she was finished. But over the weeks, something changed. Why do humans fight so many wars? She asked one evening. They were sitting in his quarters, drinking tea that tasted like flowers. Because we disagree about things, Ethan said. Land, resources, ideas, gods, we fight about everything. That seems inefficient. It is. We know it is. We fight anyway. Why? Ethan thought about the question. Because we care too much. We believe things strongly. We want things badly. And when someone threatens what we believe or want, we fight. Even when we know we might lose. Even when losing means death. Valith shook her head slowly. The Silvari do not do this. We calculate. We measure the cost of every action. If the cost is too high, we do not act. We wait. We find another way. And if there is no other way, there is always another way. You simply have to be patient enough to find it. Patience. Ethan smiled sadly. Humans are not very good at patience. We live short lives. 80 years if we are lucky. 100 if we are very lucky. We do not have time to wait for perfect solutions. We have to act with what we have. Valith was quiet for a moment. 80 years, she whispered. That is nothing. I am 140 years old. My mother is over 300. Our oldest citizens live for 500 years. I know. And you still threw yourself in front of plasma fire. You sacrificed decades of your short life for someone you did not even know. Yes. Why? It was the same question everyone asked. Ethan was getting tired of it. But this time, he tried to give a better answer. Because those decades mean nothing if I cannot look at myself in the mirror, he said. A short life lived with honor is worth more than a long life lived in shame. At least, that is what we believe. Maybe we are wrong. Maybe you are right to calculate and measure. But that is not who we are. Valith looked at him differently after that. The scheduled visits became less scheduled. She started coming to talk, not to study. She asked about Earth, about human music and art and food. She told him about Silvari history, about the ancient wars and the great achievements. They began to learn each other, but outside Ethan's golden cage, storms were gathering. The Vrethic Concordat sent a formal demand to the Empress. They wanted Ethan extradited to Vrethic space. They claimed he had murdered a diplomatic envoy during the summit attack. The assassins, they said, were actually ambassadors. The plasma fire was a misunderstanding. Everyone knew it was a lie. But the Vrethic were powerful, and lies became truth when enough ships backed them up. The Silvari noble houses were also angry. They saw Ethan's elevation as an insult. A human given a title that belonged to their history? A human living in the Imperial Wing? A human speaking to the Empress as an equal? It was an offense against everything they believed. Whispers spread through the court. The Empress has grown soft. The Empress has lost her judgment. The Empress is being manipulated by a primitive creature. Ethan heard the whispers. He pretended not to care. But he knew that whispers in courts often turned into knives in the dark. The assassination attempt came on a quiet evening. Ethan was walking through one of the garden domes, a vast space filled with alien plants that glowed in colors he had no names for. He liked to walk there alone, to clear his head, to forget for a moment that he was being watched. He heard the footstep a second too late. The blade went into his side, sliding between his ribs. The pain was sharp and cold. He turned and saw a Silvari noble, young and full of hate, pulling the blade back for another strike. Ethan did not think. His hand found the noble's throat. His other hand found the blade. He twisted both at the same time. The noble fell. The blade clattered to the floor. Ethan stumbled backward, his hand pressed against the wound in his side. Blood poured between his fingers, red and human and out of place in this world of silver and crystal. Guards found him minutes later. They found the noble too, unconscious but alive. Ethan had not killed him. He did not know why. Maybe he was getting soft. Maybe he just did not want more blood on his hands. The medical bay again. Sarah Chun again. More stitches, more medicine, more time in bed. But this time, the Empress came to him. She dismissed everyone from the room with a wave of her hand. Even the recording devices went dark. For the first time since he arrived, Ethan was truly alone with her. She sat in the chair beside his bed, exactly where Valeth had sat weeks ago. Her silver face showed nothing, but her eyes were tired. Ancient and tired. "The noble who attacked you was from House Varanthi," she said. "They have opposed me for centuries. They see you as a symbol of everything they hate. A primitive ape in their sacred halls." Yes, the Empress did not soften the truth. They will try again. Other houses will try as well. And the Vrethik will not stop demanding your head. So send me back to human space. I am not worth a war. No. The Empress leaned forward. You do not understand. You are worth exactly a war. Not because of what you are, but because of what you represent. What do I represent? Change. The Empress looked at her hands. They were smooth and perfect, but Ethan could see the weight of years in them. My empire is old, human. Old things become brittle. They crack and break because they have forgotten how to bend. We have ruled for 10,000 years by being superior, by being perfect, by being unchanging. But the galaxy is not unchanging. New species rise. Old enemies adapt. And we sit on our thrones and pretend that the universe will always bow to us. She met his eyes. You remind me of something we have lost. The will to fight without certainty of victory. The ability to act without calculation. The courage to burn for something greater than yourself. These are things we need to remember. These are things you can teach us. I am just a mercenary. I do not know how to teach empires. You taught my daughter to see humans as people instead of pets. That is a start. Ethan thought about Valeth. About the way she looked at him now. With curiosity instead of contempt. About the conversations they shared. The laughter they discovered. The strange friendship growing between them. I am giving you a choice, the Empress said. Stay and become my shield. Be a symbol for those who want change. Face the assassins and the politicians and the Vrethik. Fight for something greater than money. Or go back to human space. Be forgotten. Live out your short years in peace. She stood and walked to the door. She paused with her hand on the crystal frame. Choose quickly, human. My patience is not infinite. She left. Ethan lay in the medical bed and stared at the glowing ceiling. He thought about Earth. He thought about peace. He thought about Valeth's silver eyes and the Empress's tired face. Then he made his decision. He would stay. He would fight. And he would show this ancient empire what a short-lived human was capable of. War came like a storm across the stars. The Vrethik Concordat massed the largest fleet in 2 centuries at the border of Silvari space. 3,000 ships, carrying millions of warriors, all hungry for blood and revenge. Their demands had been ignored. Their lies had been rejected. Now they would take what they wanted by force. The Silvari Empire scrambled to respond. Ships were pulled from distant sectors. Soldiers were awakened from long sleeps. Weapons that had not been fired in. Generations were powered up and aimed at the coming. Darkness. Ethan Cole stood in the War Council. Chamberlain listened to the admirals argue. The chamber was a sphere of crystal floating in the heart of the Vanthru. Holographic maps filled the space, showing the positions of fleets, the movements of armies, the slow dance of war about to begin. The admirals stood around these maps and spoke in calm, measured voices. We will establish defensive lines at the Korth of Nebula, said Admiral Sithara. She was old even by Sylvari standards, her silver skin marked with patterns that showed her centuries of service. The nebula will slow their advance and give us time to reinforce. The losses will be acceptable, said another admiral. We can afford to sacrifice the outer colonies. They are not strategically vital. The retreat can be managed over 6 months, said a third. We will trade space for time. Eventually, the Vrethik will overextend. Then we will counterattack. Ethan listened to them plan the deaths of millions as if they were moving pieces on a game board. They were not wrong, exactly. Their strategy was sound. It would probably work in the end. But how many would die while they waited? How many worlds would burn while they calculated acceptable losses? You are thinking like immortals, Ethan said. The admirals stopped talking. They turned to look at him. He was the only human in the room, standing at the edge of the council by special permission of the Empress. To them, he was still an animal who had learned to speak. His opinion meant nothing. Explain, said Admiral Sithara. Her voice was cold. You have forever, Ethan said. So, you are playing not to lose. You are willing to retreat, to sacrifice, to wait for the perfect moment that might never come. The Vrethik are not playing that game. They are playing to win right now. They know that every day they wait, you grow stronger. So they will push hard and fast, and they will not stop until they break you. You know nothing of war on this scale. Human? I know that waiting means dying. I know that giving your enemy time to hit you first means letting them choose when and where you hurt. I know that defense is just slow offense. The admirals looked at each other. Some were angry. Some were amused. None took him seriously, except the Empress. She had been sitting silently at the head of the council, watching and listening. Now she spoke, and everyone fell silent. What would you do, human? Ethan looked at the holographic map. He saw the Vrethik fleet, a mass of red dots gathered at the border. He saw the Sylvari defenses, a thin blue line stretched across too much space. He saw the pattern that the admirals were too close to see. Attack, he said. Now, before they are ready. They expect you to defend. They have planned for it. They have not planned for you to come to them. Madness, said an admiral. We are outnumbered. We would be destroyed. You would lose ships, Ethan agreed. But you would hurt them. You would confuse them. You would make them afraid. The Vrethik are brave when they are attacking. They are not brave when they are being attacked. No one is. The Empress studied the map. Her mirror eyes moved across the holographic stars, calculating things that Ethan could not imagine. You believe this, she said. You truly believe that attacking a superior force is better than defending against it. I believe that the best defense is making your enemy too scared to attack. And you do not make anyone scared by hiding behind walls. Silence filled the chamber. The admirals waited for the Empress to dismiss this foolish human and his foolish ideas. She did not. Give him a ship, she said. The admirals stared at her in shock. Empress, give him a ship. A crew. Let him show us what human warfare looks like. If he fails, we lose one ship. If he succeeds, she smiled that cold, knife-edge smile. If he succeeds, we learn something new. The ship they gave him was called the Burning Echo. It was old and small, a cruiser that had been scheduled for scrapping. Its weapons were outdated. Its shields were weak. Its crew was made up of outcasts and exiles, Sylvari, who had failed or been disgraced, and humans who had drifted into imperial space, looking for work. It was. In every way, expendable. Ethan stood on the bridge and looked at his crew. 20 Sylvari who did not want to be there. 30 humans who did not know any better. One doctor named Sarah Chun who had insisted on coming. And one princess who had snuck aboard without her mother's permission. You should not be here, Ethan told Valeth. If we die, Then I die, she said. I have spent my whole life being protected. I want to know what it feels like to fight. Ethan did not argue. There was no time. The Vrethic fleet was moving, and the Burning Echo was moving to meet it. His plan was simple and stupid, and completely against every rule of proper warfare. He was going to fly straight into the heart of the enemy's staging ground. He was going to hit them where they were most crowded, and he was going to make them hurt. The first battle happened in an asteroid field near the border. A Vrethic patrol of 12 ships found the Burning Echo hiding among the rocks. They expected an easy kill. Ethan gave them something else. He had spent days programming the asteroids with small charges. When the Vrethic ships closed in for the kill, the asteroids exploded. Rocks the size of buildings flew in every direction. 3 Vrethic ships were destroyed instantly. 2 more were crippled. The rest scattered in confusion. The Burning Echo emerged from the chaos with guns blazing. Ethan did not fight fair. He aimed for engines and sensors, blinding and crippling his enemies instead of trying to destroy them. Wounded ships were more useful than dead ones. They slowed down the fleet. They scared the survivors. When the Burning Echo jumped away, 7 Vrethic ships were burning in the darkness. The second battle was at a supply station. The Vrethic needed fuel and ammunition to keep their fleet moving. Ethan destroyed their fuel. He destroyed their ammunition. He left the station itself intact, filled with survivors who would tell stories about the ghost ship that had come out of nowhere. The third battle was at the staging ground itself. The Vrethic High Command had gathered their leaders on a massive dreadnought to plan the invasion. Ethan crashed a damaged cargo ship into its shields while the Burning Echo came in from behind. It was a suicide run. Everyone knew it. The crew knew they might not come back. They fought anyway. Humans and Sylvari stood side by side, firing weapons that should have been in museums, keeping the ship together with desperate repairs and stubborn refusal to die. Sarah-chan worked in the medical bay with blood up to her elbows, saving lives faster than the enemy could take them. Valith stood on the bridge beside Ethan, her silver face illuminated by the fire of exploding ships. The Burning Echo hit the dreadnought with everything it had. Missiles, plasma fire, even the ship itself in one final ramming maneuver. The dreadnought's shields fell. Its hull cracked open. Its leaders died in the vacuum of space. The Burning Echo should have died too. But somehow, impossibly, it limped away from the wreckage. Half its crew was wounded. A quarter was dead. But it was still flying. Still fighting. Still refusing to give up. When news reached the Vrethic fleet that their high command was dead, the invasion stopped. The ships that had been moving to destroy the Sylvari colonies instead turned back to fight among themselves. Without leaders, the Vrethic Concordat began to fracture. The war was not over. But the tide had turned. The Burning Echo returned to the Vanthral as a legend. Ships flew beside it in honor. Crowds gathered in the docking bay to watch it land. The crew walked out to cheers that echoed through the crystal halls. Ethan walked last, limping and bleeding and more tired than he had ever been in his life. The admirals who had dismissed him were waiting. Some bowed their heads in respect. Others looked away in shame. Eliath found him before anyone else. Her silver gown was stained with blood and smoke. Her perfect hair was tangled and wild. She had never looked more beautiful. She touched his face with her silver hand, feeling the new scars that marked his skin. "You came back again," she whispered. Ethan smiled through cracked lips. "Told you. I do not feel like dying." She kissed him then, in front of the whole court, in front of the admirals and nobles and the watching Empress. A princess of the Sylvari Empire, kissing a human mercenary who had just changed the course of a war. The galaxy watched and wondered what this meant. Ethan did not care about the galaxy. He was alive. His crew was alive. And for one moment, in the arms of a woman who had learned to see him as more than furniture, everything was right. The war ended not with surrender, but with words. After the death of their high command, the Vrethic Concordat fell into chaos. Different hives fought each other for control. Different hives fought each other for control. Warlords rose and fell in bloody struggles that had nothing to do with the Silvari Empire. The great invasion fleet scattered like leaves in a storm, but the Vrethic were not broken. They were wounded, confused, and afraid, but not broken. And wounded creatures were dangerous. Empress Cirith knew that leaving them to suffer would only create a worse enemy in the future. So she offered peace. The negotiation was held on Concordance Prime, the same station where everything had begun. The same grand hall where Ethan had thrown himself in front of plasma fire. The damage from that day had been repaired, but the memories remained, written in the whispers of those who had been there. Ethan stood beside the Empress as part of the Silvari delegation. It was unheard of. A human at an imperial negotiation table. But the Empress had insisted, and no one argued with the Empress. The Vrethic sent their hive mind that it was not a single creature but many. 12 bodies, connected by a shared consciousness, moving and speaking as one. Their shells were black and gleaming. Their eyes were clusters of red light that saw everything at once. They filled one side of the table like a nightmare given form. The negotiations were long and difficult. The Vrethic demanded territories. The Silvari demanded guarantees. Both sides lied and bargained and threatened. Ethan watched and said nothing. This was not his fight. He was here as a symbol, nothing more. But then the hive mind turned its many eyes toward him. "You," it said. The voice came from all 12 bodies at once, a chorus that vibrated in Ethan's bones. "You are the chaos creature, the one who killed our leaders, the one who broke our fleet." Ethan met their gaze. He did not look away. "Yes, you are small, soft, fragile. Your species lives for moments and dies like insects. You should not have been able to do what you did. And yet I did." The hive mind shifted. Its 12 bodies moved in patterns that might have been confusion or anger or something Ethan had no name for. "Your species should not exist," it said. "You are chaos wrapped in flesh. You do not follow the patterns. You do not respect the rules. You burn and break and destroy without logic or reason. We have our reasons. You just do not understand them. Explain." Ethan thought about his answer. The whole room was watching. The Empress, the nobles, the Vrethic bodies with their red cluster eyes. Everyone waited to hear what the human would say. "We are afraid," Ethan said finally. "We are always afraid. We know we are small and soft and fragile. We know the universe is huge and cold and does not care if we live or die. So we fight. We fight everything, all the time, because if we stop fighting for even a moment, the universe will crush us. Fear makes us strong. Fear makes us dangerous. Fear makes us do impossible things, because the alternative is to lie down and accept death." The hive mind was silent for a long moment. Then it spoke again, and for the first time, its voice held something like respect. "You are honest, chaos creature. That is rare. I do not know how to be anything else." The hive mind turned back to the Empress. "We will accept your terms, not because we are beaten. We will grow strong again. We will rebuild our fleets and train new leaders, and one day we will return. But today we accept peace. Because of him." It pointed at Ethan with a sharp black limb. "Because we do not understand him, and we do not fight what we do not understand." Not yet. The treaty was signed that day. It was fragile and full of holes, and would probably collapse in a generation. But for now, there was peace. Ships stopped shooting at each other. Soldiers went home to their families. The galaxy breathed. 3 weeks later, the Empress held a ceremony in the great throne room of the Vantral. The entire court was present. Nobles from every great house. Ambassadors from a dozen species. Recording devices that would broadcast the event across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see what the Empress would do. Ethan stood before the throne of dead starlight in a new uniform. It was white and silver, the colors of the Imperial House. He felt ridiculous wearing it. He was a mercenary from Earth, not a nobleman. But the Empress had insisted. She rose from her throne and walked down to stand before him. In her hands, she carried a small box made of crystal. "Ethan Cole of Earth," she said. Her voice rang through the hall like a bell. "You came to us as a stranger. You were hired as decoration, expected to stand in corners and be forgotten. Instead, you saved my daughter's life. You fought when others hesitated. You died and refused to stay dead. You led our outcasts into battle and turned the tide of a war. You have shown my empire something we had forgotten, the power of acting without certainty, of fighting without guarantee, of burning for something greater than yourself." She opened the box. Inside was a small symbol, a mark that Ethan did not recognize. But the court recognized it. Gasps echoed through the hall. "With this mark, I claim you as kin to the Imperial House, not as a servant, not as a pet, as family. From this day forward, you are Ethan Cole of House Soren, brother to princesses and son of empires. Your blood is our blood. Your enemies are our enemies. Your honor is our honor." She pressed the mark to his chest. It burned, but only for a moment. When she removed her hand, the symbol glowed on his skin, silver light shining through his uniform. The court erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted in anger. Some simply stared in shock. A human adopted into the imperial family. It had never happened. It should never have happened, but it had happened. And nothing would ever be the same. Later, after the ceremony and the celebrations and the endless speeches, Ethan found himself on a balcony looking out at the stars. Lilith found him there, as she always seemed to find him. "You could leave now," she said. She stood beside him, close enough that their shoulders almost touched. "You have earned your freedom. 10 times over. No one would blame you if you went back to Earth, back to your own kind." Ethan looked at the stars. They were the same stars he had dreamed of as a boy, lying in the dirt on a planet that now seemed impossibly far away. He had wanted to reach them so badly. He had wanted to see what was out there. Now he knew. The universe was beautiful and terrible, and full of creatures who did not understand each other. It was also home. Not Earth that was the past. This ship, these people, this silver-skinned woman standing beside him. This was home now. "Why would I leave?" he asked. "Because you do not belong here. You never will. The nobles will always see you as an outsider. The other species will always see you as a curiosity. You will spend the rest of your life fighting to be accepted. I have spent my whole life fighting. This is no different. But why? Why choose this? Why choose us?" Ethan turned to look at her. Her silver eyes reflected the starlight. Her face was still hard to read after all these months, but he was learning. He could see the fear behind her question. A question. The hope. The need to understand. "Because someone has to teach you how to be stubborn," he said. "Someone has to remind you that the universe does not care about your plans and calculations. Someone has to show you that sometimes the best thing to do is to throw yourself in front of danger and hope you survive." That sounds exhausting. It is. But it is also wonderful. Humans live short lives. Valeth. We burn bright and fast, and then we are gone. But while we burn with everything we have. I want to share that with you. With all of you. I want to show you what it feels like to be alive even when death is breathing down your neck. Valith was quiet for a moment. Then she reached out and took his hand. Her silver fingers were cool against his warm skin. Stay then, she said. Stay and burn with us. I intend to. They stood together on the balcony, watching the stars spin slowly past. Behind them, the Empire stretched across 1,000 worlds. Ahead of them lay an uncertain future full of challenges and enemies and impossible odds. But Ethan Cole had faced impossible odds before. He had died and come back. He had fought wars and made peace. He had earned his place among beings who once saw him as less than furniture. He was still just a human. Small, soft, fragile, and destined to die in the blink of a Silvari eye. But he was also something else now. Something the galaxy had not seen before. He was the human who stayed. The chaos creature who chose to burn among the stars. And he was just getting started.